Well, I am back a little sooner than I expected. The second trailer for Dragon Ball Super Broly has leaked, and if you're wondering how, well, Toei in their infinite wisdom added their unlisted trailer to their public YouTube playlist, so of course everyone found it, mirrored it, and instead of us waiting until the New York Comic Con panel, we have it right now. So without further ado, let's dive in. I, of course, cover animation, but this trailer is very much focused on narrative. There's actually not that much animation to talk about. And I have to be honest, that has left me a little bit underwhelmed on that front, particularly after the interviews that said there'd be a focus on character acting and movement at all times. This is a really static trailer, and that's not a knock against the movie as a whole. We've seen plenty of stuff that indicates this thing will be unbelievably gorgeous. The direction and character design in this trailer already reflects that. But after such a crazy first trailer and all of these remarkably promising comments, I can't lie to you, I don't think this does a great job of selling those aspects. At the same time, I almost appreciate not seeing everything the film has to offer. One Piece Film Gold, for example, its marketing showed stacks upon stacks of highlights, even going as far as to show Luffy's finishing move, so maybe this is actually a positive. I kind of feel like each trailer is representing a different influence. They kind of line up with the promotional theatrical runs in the US. Trailer 1 was movie 8, the first Broly movie. Trailer 2 here is the Bardock TV special. Kind of. It's of course the Dragon Ball Minus version, but then I think trailer 3 will almost certainly be the movie 12 counterpart, featuring Gogeta and a whole bunch of action towards the end of the film. Gogeta is of course basically 100% confirmed at this point, so definitely don't be too surprised. Japan does not care about spoilers, so look forward to that. Diving in properly then, from the get-go we are greeted with an absolutely stunning landscape of this film's version of Planet Vegeta. You can tell that this is Nagamine from this shot alone. The intense use of colour is incredibly striking, and drenching the world in these distinctive atmospheric colours is something he really loves to do, and we'll see that throughout pretty much this entire trailer. But there is something lurking in the background here, and this is 100% something you will have heard me talk about before. There is a giant planet or moon back there. Nagamine is known for supermoons. He loves these huge overwhelming orbs in the backgrounds of his work. We've seen it in Procure, we've seen it in the Tournament of Power, and it is right here in the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie. There are a lot of different planets back there, and I think in true Dragon Ball style, Nagamine has taken on his final form and introduced what I'm going to call a super ultra duper mega moon. He is definitely having a lot of fun. Unfortunately, this scene does contain something that I have been very apprehensive about for a while, and that is the film's CG. I will say on the whole it at least kind of feels like part of the world, which is certainly more than I can say for the CG in the last two films, but I'm struggling to understand the texture and shader choices since they're incredibly realistic, and that kind of flies in the face of this film that is intent on honouring Toriyama's modern, very bubbly and cartoony style. It's especially clear in the next shot where the Ginyu Force fly into view, and they're rocking this loose minimalist style only to have this really heavily textured ship flying behind them. Considering the action CG is intent on matching the film's aesthetic, I just can't really explain this choice, but maybe you can, so definitely do remember to leave a comment if you have any ideas. Moving on, we start to get our first look at Nagamine's insane storyboarding. We've got characters entering the scene, framed between the arms of the Ginyu Force posing. We've got Frieza, arms stretched out with the Saiyans in front, and the background curving around the edges of the frame, making for one striking shot. Again, all of these Planet Vegeta scenes are drenched in pink, and I can't help but wonder if that's actually a choice based on the narrative. If you follow me on Twitter, you may have seen my DBZ rewatch tweets where I've been documenting my thoughts on the animation in each episode. During the Frieza arc, a director called Yoshihiro Ueda made similar use of pink lighting as a way to indicate Frieza's sort of looming presence over everyone, particularly during the flashbacks. I think Nagamine might actually be doing the same thing here. Frieza's dominating this planet and its inhabitants, so I think it makes a lot of sense to convey that with intense lighting, matching Frieza's primary color. And speaking of our favourite Emperor, we do get ourselves our first look at his brand new base form design, and it's caused a big old rumble within the community due to the colour choices. Unlike his anime appearance for the past almost 30 years, he is no longer purple. This film marks the first time Frieza has been coloured in his original manga colours. A lot of people on Twitter seemed unaware that yes, Frieza in the manga is actually pink. We've heard many times in the promotional run that they're looking to use this film to bring the series closer to Toriyama's style, and it seems that that is extending to the color palettes. Personally, I absolutely adore it, and I really like seeing him without his armor, even if that does kind of fly in the face of what was originally in the manga, assuming of course that that is planet Vegeta being destroyed there. Oops. Next up is King Vegeta, whose design is fairly similar to his original, though this time he's got this dress component that we also saw on Paragus. He's got a very defined nose here, and actually this is our first look at Miyako Tsuji's contribution to the film. Tsuji was of course one of the chief animation supervisors on Super, alongside Takeo Ide, and both of which will be on this film in a supervisory role too. Those eyes and ears are absolutely impossible to miss, and they seem to pop up pretty frequently throughout this section. I get the feeling the styles in each part of the film will be very distinctly different from one another. It seems like Tsuji's handling this Planet Vegeta section, Takahashi's handling the ice section, Tate might be handling the lava section. There are some pretty clear divisions, and I'll be very interested to see how that works out. More on that later though, because I'm not sure it's quite perfect. Again, more interesting use of colour with Goku in his tank drenched in yellow, more spectacularly janky CG as Bardock flies towards the screen, but it does lead into our first look at new Bardock. I think design-wise he's looking pretty competent. This is of course based on his appearance in Dragon Ball Minus, so you won't have any bandana or vest-style armour. This is the full-on squared-off take from the manga, and the shot is actually pretty much one-to-one with one of the panels in Minus. It has almost all of the Shintani design elements that we're used to, the soft muscles and loosely defined shapes, but it doesn't have the rounded off eyes, and I know that's a nitpick, but it's one of those modern Toriyama elements that I really love and I hoped would have made its way in here. Next, and in stark contrast to the calm yellows of Goku's pod, we've got Vegeta in a suitably aggressive red. I really like the compositing choices where King Vegeta leans against the pod. You've got a cool rim light against his beard and the edges of the line art. It's little touches like that that help these characters feel like part of the world, rather than just cardboard cutouts on a background. Where Gine and Bardock say goodbye to Goku, there's similar compositing decisions there with intense rim light, and a technique that I really enjoy, which is adding subtle gradients to the overall image. It helps the lighting feel more natural, and again, like the characters are actually part of the world. You can see similar decisions in the shot of Frieza later on. He has subtle gradients all throughout the shadows on him, and it goes a long way in adding very subtle polish to the overall look of the image. I'm just so blown away by how distinct Nagamine's direction is. You can take shots from all different parts of this trailer and you get such a wide array of interesting colours. It makes such a pleasant change from the very pedestrian work found in the last two movies. It may sound silly, but to me these trailers are demonstrating that this is a serious, legitimate film. I have said this many times before and I will say it again, but go and watch the trailers for Battle of Gods and Resurrection F, and you'll see that they feel way more like TV episodes, or at best, TV specials in comparison to this. To wrap things up, as we hit the end of the trailer, we flash forward to the present and get a terrific shot of Goku, Vegeta, and Broly. Individually, these are all awesome drawings, but it does kind of bring me back around to the consistency aspect of the film that I mentioned earlier. Goku here is very much in line with Shintani's designs, and I wouldn't be the least surprised if this was in fact Ryo Onashi's work, as the timing and scrunched face does kind of remind me of the other stuff we've seen from him. It's loose, it has minimal detail, it's a perfectly solid take on the character. We then cut to Vegeta and Broly from Yuya Takahashi, and these are also absolutely amazing drawings, but they are fundamentally different from everything else in this trailer. They are Buarg designs. That's a really jarring shift, and one of my biggest criticisms of Tadayoshi Yamamuro in the past as a supervisor is that he erases animated traits to the point that people lose their entire identity, and I'm not asking for that back. But a supervisor role exists to bring unity to a product, because consistency is important to a degree. If it wasn't, we wouldn't bother with character designs or supervisor roles in the first place. Personal deviations are great, but they have to fall in line with the overall aesthetic of the work, and I'm starting to worry about Takahashi's presence here. In the last trailer, we saw many shots that were clearly Takahashi's approach to Shintani's designs. They had minimal shading, and anything that featured the intense stuff we saw in Super was clearly just there as a punchy, impactful close-up. But now we're starting to see more and more shots like this, and while I do love Takahashi and I don't have a problem with his work in isolation, I do worry that maybe we're getting a film that is just going to have jarring slices of really detailed work in the midst of other artists honouring the overall approach. Shintani has acknowledged Takashi's popularity, and I imagine that is why none of this has been toned down through corrections. And that is kind of cool in a way, but I just hope it doesn't compromise A, the audience's immersion, and B, the overall consistency. But that is just a tiny concern, and if that and some questionable CG decisions are my only complaints with the visuals so far, then I don't think there's much to worry about. This really is such a breath of fresh air for Dragon Ball. I was talking to Geekdom 101 just as the trailer dropped, and I was saying to him that it's just so surreal to be watching footage that actually feels like Toriyama's manga come to life again. It feels like a Toriyama story, and although that does involve retelling Dragon Ball Minus, my least favourite thing he's ever written, I'm still interested to see how things will turn out. However, I will reserve all narrative thoughts on that front until the movie is out, because that is just a whole can of worms that probably needs its own video. That is the end of the breakdown, however, and we probably won't get another trailer now until November, and of course there is an early screening of the movie in the middle of that month, so do watch out because we'll probably hear a lot of juicy things coming out of that. Any spoilers from me will of course come with a warning, so no worries on that front, but that is all from me for now. Thank you so much for watching and being very patient while I stepped away from YouTube over the past 2 months. As a result, I will ask you very kindly to please rate the video and leave a comment, as it does seriously help me with coming back into things after a long absence. As far as the old YouTube algorithm goes, I do want to hear your thoughts on the trailer, the visuals, the story, so do get commenting. I get the feeling this is probably going to be a divisive one, but again, that is it. As always, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.